Coming up next, the Forecast channel is out for the Wii, so it's only appropriate that our three industry experts give their forecast for Nintendo's future. Does Nintendo's strategy mean it could rocket from third to first place in the console war?
For the first 2 years, people are going to call Nintendo the winner.
And what should Nintendo build to follow up on the Wii?
Now we can suddenly compete on graphics, same control mechanism, and it's fully backward compatible, so you can dump old Super Monkey Ball in there. People will say that's great.
Our panel gives their take next as this episode of the bonus round concludes. Welcome back to the bonus round where we're talking about Nintendo and its new system, the Wii. Joining me this time is Tommy Tallarico, video game composer, Sierra executive producer Pete Wanat, and Wedbush Morgan Securities analyst Michael Pachter. We've talked a lot about the Wii and the strengths and weaknesses of the system, but what do you think is going to happen in the console race? Because Nintendo has a cheaper system, so is it possible that this is going to look like it's the number one system in terms of sales?
I think what's going to happen, I think for the first time in video game history, you're going to have a three-way tie, pretty much. Okay. And what I love about it is I think that that's great for the gamers, you know, because all of these companies, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, they're all going to try to outdo each other now to get that little edge, and they're going to have price cuts, and they're going to try to come out with the more innovative first-party, more innovative exclusive title and this and that. And I think in the end, the gamers are going to win out. And I also think that in this life cycle of where the video game industry is, I think that's great because at the end of the last generation, I don't want to play another Tony Hawk and another Madden and another. Games were starting to get so, formulaic and predictable that I think this is exactly what the video game industry needs: a three-way tie and offer incentives, and I think it's great for the gamers.
You agree, Pete?
I mean, I think if it's a three-way tie, then Nintendo really wins because if they're having to come back from GameCube, so it's like they
a system
finished
where people
third,
sort of thought that it might have been over for Nintendo after GameCube.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that. I think Nintendo, like we talked about earlier with handhelds, like I think they're always going to have the ability to stay in the hardware business. But what we really need to see is who's going to pay the money for not just first-party exclusive content. Who's going to, go back to Take-Two and say, we'll pay you X number of dollars so you only come out on our system. And until you see, Sony and Microsoft stepping up and paying third-party people to go exclusive, that's really hard to predict a winner, in my opinion, between 360 and PS3.
And in some ways, for the Wii, you're not going to have to pay developers to make games exclusive for that because they have to sort of make an exclusive game to work on that system.
Yeah, and you're also going to want to, if you want to make, you want to hit the target audience. For we talked about SpongeBob before, for little kids games, like they're going to dominate. Like Nintendo is going to own the little kids market far beyond any way they've ever owned it before. I mean, they really made a system that's geared exactly towards that audience.
Michael, you agree? Do they look like they're number one here in the short term?
In the U.S. and Europe, I think Tommy's right. Looks like a three-way tie. It'll be close to that. If you factor in Japan, Sony wins, Nintendo finishes second. Early on, Nintendo wins. Right. I think that because of the price point and because of the publicity, the media publicity about how fun this system is, I think you get a disproportionately large, sell-through of Wiis early. So for the first 2 years, people are going to call Nintendo the winner. If we come back a year from now, every one of these guys is going to say, I'm shocked.
Wii has beat out 360.
Wii is winning. Yeah, they're winning.
If we had to look, though, 5 years into the future...
I totally agree with you. It'll balance out.
I'm thinking, and if I had to pick one, if somebody said, list them 1, 2, 3 in 5 years from now, I would probably say PS3.
Me too.
360 and Nintendo in 5 years.
And I actually think that's probably right as well. So Wii looks like the winner because it's inexpensive, accessible. PS3, if Blu-ray becomes the movie standard, PS3 zooms past the other two guys, especially when we all have HD TVs.
Although, I mean, I can't get a PS3. So right now, for me, it's about...
I'll sell you one. $1,500
on eBay.
I got two.
I mean, that's the thing.
The Wii, exactly. It's out there. They're
you can get more. You have a shot at getting a Wii. I don't think you have much of a shot at getting a PS3.
You're right.
And right now, I mean, I still go home and I'm playing 360. But
it sounds like you guys are saying that the lifespan of the Wii is going to be less than the 360 and the PS3. So what do you think? What does Nintendo do?
I think Nintendo speeds it up. I mean, I think in
they
5 years, In 5
4
years,
years?
3 years, when
Right.
Nintendo could put a 3.2 gigahertz microprocessor in there and say, now suddenly, and a faster graphics
Wii
card,
2?
now we can suddenly compete on graphics, same control mechanism,
Right.
and it's fully backward compatible, so you can dump old Super Monkey Ball in there. People will say, that's great. People will buy new ones.
Do you think
They'll
they
upgrade.
shorten the cycle on their console? You think there'll
Because-
probably be another Wii before?
I do. I think when the PS3 comes down in price to sub $300, Nintendo can bring out the Wii 2 at $200 without a Blu-ray drive and have much better
And
graphics.
high def gaming.
And I think that they'll just continue to do well.
You agree with that, Pete? You think we're going to see, a second Wii in a couple of years?
I mean, I think you'll see another Nintendo system. I think it depends largely on how the Wii fares beyond the kids market to see.
Well,
whether
so
you
originally
actually
people were
get
saying
it.
like, oh, is this the similar to the Virtual Boy, which an old Nintendo system that came out and disappeared. I mean, it's pretty clear that the Wii is going to have longer legs than that. But you think, is this Wii control scheme? Is that what you think Nintendo's going to keep doing, or do you think they're going to go in a different direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think they like the fact that their control system is very different than the others because it makes it a lot harder for Sony or Microsoft to copy, the Nintendo formula.
Right.
The one thing that I wish Nintendo would have done, and I don't know why, but why not just pack a normal controller in and then give everyone 3 different options?
I just got my normal controller from them. I just got it.
But
They
why
have
didn't
it now, though.
why didn't
Yeah.
it pack it in? Where that way developers could have
Because I
done
don't
it
think they want
for,
developers to
you know?
use that as a crutch. That then
Right,
you can put
right,
regular games
right,
on there
yeah.
and just because then you get a situation of just people using regular games on the system
'Cause I
and not
think-
really taking advantage and designing the game for the accelerometers and the controllers.
It also becomes a nightmare for anybody who's making games to have to, I have to make it work with the Wii mode. I got to make it work with the nunchuck. I got to make it work with the basic controller.
Well, you pick one of them, though.
I'm just saying, like if not,
But if you
everyone-
want to play with a basic controller, wouldn't you just play on a PS3 or a 360? That's what I think. It's like if that's the system, if that's the control scheme
That's why you
want.
buy 2 consoles. I think you're right. But that's another reason to buy the Wii.
So
and
you're sure saying
another
anyone
console.
that just decides to buy a Wii and that's my bet for the next generation is just getting a Wii. They're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think you'll start seeing PS Wiis as well as your Wii 60s. So.
Your Wii 60s.
Your PS.
Yeah,
I've never
exactly.
heard
So
that
it's a
one.
great second console, but because it's cheaper, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, this is where I think that graphics and Blu-ray, let's see what happens with Blu-ray versus HD, could really make a big difference going like
Right.
2-3 years from now because, let's face it, the graphic capabilities of the Wii right now aren't so horrible. Like you play Zelda and it's a little grainy, yeah, but
Right.
it's still like kind of this beautiful thing.
Really helps if you have that added cord in the back. I got
cat-
my Mad Catz one, and it
Oh,
made
components or
Zelda
something?
really just
Oh, did it really? Yeah.
pop to
Oh,
life.
yeah.
I was like, wow, this is really the graphics are really sort of shaky, but after you have that cord in there, it really makes a big difference.
But the thing is, in 2 and 3 years from now, when the developers really start to roll up their sleeves and get, graphically amazing with the 360 and the PS3 and more HD TVs that are out there, I think, your friends are going to come over and they're going to be, they might not be so enthused if they only have the Nintendo and their friends are playing these amazing
But by then
games
they'll
on
have
HP.
Wii too, right?
So hopefully the prices will come down in the PlayStation 3. What are you thinking, Sony? Anyway, but
I think Sony undercut their price. I think Sony should have come out at $1,200.
You think,
Well,
huh?
why? You couldn't buy one for the price they had it anyway.
eBay
so
was
what would
getting
it matter?
2,000. Yeah,
Well, you know the sad part about the whole PlayStation 3 thing is that actually for $600 or $500,
great value.
it actually is an amazing value.
Oh,
and I think
consider the Blu-ray and
Sony's
everything, yeah.
uphill battle is proving to people that should be their marketing plan. They have to understand. They have to tell
The value you
people
get for $600.
that the value, and they're not doing that. And it's
I mean, I've gone back to Best Buy like 5 or 6 times to try to get in on one. So it's like, Wallen just can't find one. So why not just charge $1,200 for it?
Yeah, that's
so
interesting because a lot of people talk to Microsoft's talking a lot about how people walk into a store, PS3 is not available, they're going to buy a 360. But based on what we're saying here, I mean, is it more likely that they might buy a Wii instead this year, Michael?
As a gift, probably. If it's for you, I know a ton of guys who were waiting for the PS3. They didn't buy a 360, and they all gave up. They said, "I'm getting my 360," and they're stoked.
Really?
Great.
So they decided to give up on
great
the PS3.
content. You
Wow.
have.
So, but
just
and the
great-
Wii doesn't enter the equation for them?
Again, I mean, the guys I hang out with
Right.
are the guys you're talking about. These 30-something guys who are hardcore gamers. They're mad that they waited so long to buy a 360. But as a gift, I think if a mom goes in to buy one for the teenage kid, it's iffy whether she buys a 360 or not. She buys the Wii because it's cheap, and she'll get the PS3 later. So I'm curious to see what the 360 numbers look like when we get the sales data.
We will see. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us in the bonus round. It's going to be a great console war, and I'm sure we'll see you again in here.
And the gamers win. That's the good news.
As they always do, Tom.
Bonus round.